Hi, everybody. Welcome to Ann Ortelee's Weekly Weather. I am Ann Ortelee. Nice to see you all here. This is the weekly weather from May 4th to May 11th of this month. The week we have the new moon webinars. We'll have one at the end of the month on the 25th. The 26th is the new moon. We'll have the webinar on the 25th. We also have 5 planets and node signs changing. So a lot of activity up there in the heavens. Which we've covered a few times. So I'm going to kind of just put the screen up there for those of you for the dates. So we have Pluto in Aquarius, which just stationed this week to go backwards until October. So he's stopped and he's kind of in a position of pouring concrete or casting plaster. He's got a structure in place because he got to 3, and now he's going to go back till October and then revise the structure. So like the cement's wet. The plaster can still be molded. The clay hasn't been fired yet, but he's put a foundation down. We also had Neptune go into Aries. It went in on March 30th, and it will be there until 2039. It's going to go back for a little bit in the fall into Pisces, but it will be committing to Aries till 2039. Uranus is going to go into Gemini on July 7th. Saturn's going to go into Aries later this month on May 24th. Last time he was there was in April of 96. Jupiter's going to go into Cancer on June 9th. And we had the North Node at 0 Aries on January 11th. So what that's doing is it's forming what we call a minor grand trine or a talent trine with the Gemini and the Pluto kind of sextiling each other. And they both are talking to the North Node of Fate at 0 Aries from January 10th, as well as Saturn and Neptune. And this week, as Venus went over Neptune, activated that minor talent trine. So we're going to be watching the structures that get poured and created over this time as planets come to activate that point. And they're going to dance in between. Saturn and Neptune are going to dance in Aries and Pisces until 2025 is over, and then they're going to meet up and commit for a 38-year cycle. So we're pouring the concrete or the cement. So it's very important, if you don't like the cement or the concrete or the plaster that's being poured in your life, very important to get on it now, because the retrograde allows you to revise it. The features of the week ahead are Pluto stationing and turning retrograde until October 13th. He stopped at 3 degrees 49 minutes Aquarius. He entered his shadow, which is when he started revising things, on January 10th, which, if you remember, was the North Node at 0 Aries, signifying the new 19-year cycle that the node was going to take. That week was big. That week was California on fire, Kamala Harris going to NATO for the last time, and Trump getting sentenced to 34 felonies. And that North Node hit at 10, and that is also with a shadow point for Pluto in Aquarius. So we started the energy from January 10th up until now around power dynamics, and how we're going to do things can be revised as we go backwards until October 13th. So if you don't like what's going on in your life, this is the time to get going. Venus also is directly triggering the Venus star point when Sun and Venus met on March 23rd at 2 degrees of 39 minutes of Aries. So that's starting a new 8-year cycle in whatever house you have 2 degrees Aries in. And if you think back 8 years, March of 8 years ago, which would be 17, March of 2009, March of 2001. Each of those years, you started big cycles around the Sun Venus. So Venus has gone, she was retrograde. Now she's going forward, and she's going to trigger that star point and activate it again, because it happened, but all the other planets were retrograde, and it was kind of like, doesn't feel like anything happened. Mars is retrograde, Mercury's retrograde. Venus is like, all right, I'll wait until I get to May and I'll trigger it again. So she's activating it. She's still in her retrograde shadow until she gets to 1050 Aries, which is going to be May 16th. That's next week. So you're going to be talking to your ghosts. You're going to be hearing from exes. You're going to be resolving money issues. Good time to pay off your debt, negotiate a loss, go negotiate a settlement to the IRS, work on settling lawsuits, figuring out what you want to do about money and love and value. And if you broke up with someone during the retrograde periods, as quite a few of my clients have, you're not done until Venus clears her shadow, which is May 16th. So I got one calling me the other day, crying a lot. And I'm like, it's not over. And then I had another one who called and it done, never going to talk to him, but well, he called again. And she's talking to him. So, just know Venus is still in her retrograde shadow until May 16th. So talk to your ghosts. Mercury is also on a world point as he sextiles Uranus. So Mercury is giving us very important information this week and communicating. And world points are important because that 0 Aries is a world point. But also when Mercury's on a world point talking to Uranus, he's encouraging us. So it's fire and air, fire Mercury on air, sextiling Uranus and Taurus. How could that be? Oh, okay, never mind. Venus sextile stationing retrograde Pluto, which is important because that kind of encourages us to step forward and say, aha, this is where we're headed. This is what we're doing. And then Mercury goes into Taurus. And then there is a full moon that happens on 12 Taurus Scorpio, which is enlightenment. And also that's right where Uranus is. So enlightenment with a breakthrough. So that's the features of the week. It's kind of a busy week. The Virgo moons are a little stressed, but the rest of the week is nice. So we started with Pluto stationing to go retrograde at 29:39, kind of wrapping up a story and saying, okay, I'm ready for a new direction to happen and moving forward. I think that should be Mercury on the world point sextiles Jupiter. Sorry, in Gemini. I'm reading that. I'm like, Uranus is still in Taurus. That's wrong. It's Jupiter in Gemini. Okay. So Pluto stations retrograde, which is very much important, and it's going backwards until October. And it also is back to January 10th. So what we were talking about, working on, thinking about back on January 10th, and notice Neptune is right next to that 0 Aries. So it's a forward motion energy. Pluto is high, and the sun is on a world point. 15 of Taurus is a world point. So big news, big opportunities, big information, a lot of paying attention to stuff. Also, you can see Pluto stopped here on the descendant as it's now going to go backwards in the chart cast for DC. Lovely mystic rectangle inviting us to explore our mysteries. Mars is past the opposition to Pluto, and Pluto is stopped. And he's like, all right, I got as far as I can go. I'll be back, but I'm going backwards for a while. And so when that happens, the rest of the planets all go, oh, okay, good, he's gone. And they kind of calm down a little. But at the same time, he invites us to revise everything we've done since January 10th. And he says, is that the decision you really wanted to make? And if you go, well, not really, but under duress, I made it, or I thought about it. And now that I'm here, I'm kind of like, maybe not so much. This is your time to revise it. And Venus is encouraging you because she's coming to activate that point. And she's about to start a new 8-year cycle at 2 of Aries, where she met with the sun and she said, okay, sun and Venus, what is it we desire? Where are we going? That was the March 23rd. We also have Venus triggering that Venus star point. So this is her back at the day of the Venus star point. Notice the ascendant is, for the chart cast for DC, the ascendant is 0 Cap, and the midheaven is a world point. 22.5 of the mutables, or I'm sorry, of the cardinals is a world, and it's 23 a degree on either side. And then we see the Venus and Neptune here really chatting it up. We also have Venus in a sextile to Pluto, which happens next. So she's going to go, because she can talk to Pluto. They get along pretty well. He kind of thinks she's pretty. Like he likes her. It's kind of a curmudgeonly like. And we also see here the sun in Taurus on a world point, answering to Venus on her Venus star point. So in the regular one, the sun was at 2 Aries, but Mars was retrograde back then. And there wasn't, she didn't go forward. She just kind of noticed it and went, all right, I've got all this other stuff going. I'll get back to you. So now she's ready to roll. And so it's important to be like, okay, what are we believing? What are we thinking with the planets focused on the 3rd? And more importantly, what are we going to build? With Mercury at 21-27, almost on a world point, but getting there, talking to us. And we have Pallas Athena talking to Mercury. She's at 21. So there's a lot of good ideas that you're going to have coming in this week. That's on Sunday. Next, I said Mercury sextiles Uranus, but it's actually Mercury sextiles Jupiter. So I made a typo in the slide and I repeated it out. So Mercury sextiling Jupiter, both Mercury is on a world point, 22 and a half of the cardinals. So when they have, this is an annual aspect, and Mercury and Jupiter are Mercury rules Jupiter. So Jupiter is going to come and talk to Mercury. It's a closing the sextile. So it allows us to distribute ideas, send things out into the world that we think are really important to us and that encourage others to go forward. That happens on Monday. When we get to Tuesday, we're going to have Venus at her retrograde station or her Venus star point station in a sextile to Pluto, who is still stopped. He's now going retrograde, but he's still at the degree of his retrograde station. And so she rules the rising sign in the chart cast for DC and is in the sixth house of how do we do the daily work? Where are we going? And we're still working with Mercury and Chiron meeting up. Mercury, Chiron, and Eris are all this little powerful energy over here about how do we take action and not feel wounded. We also have Uranus rolling along on Algol this week, which does give us sudden beheadings, people leaving jobs, leaving posts, changing direction. Next up, we have Mercury going into Taurus, which is good. It was retrograde in Aries, so it felt like it was in Aries for a long time. Now it's going into Taurus. And so it's going to go talk, still fiery because it's talking to Venus because she's in Aries, right? So Mercury goes, oh, Venus. And Venus goes, oh, Mercury, we're still doing the fiery thing because I'm still in fire. And he's like, okay, but I'm going to maybe be a little more rounded about it. And she's like, great. And what he does then is Jupiter is in Gemini still, right? In Gemini until June. And Jupiter now reports to Mercury and Taurus. So Jupiter calms down a lot. It's not going to be like everything's on fire anymore. It's going to be like, and everything's on fire and you have to do things twice. It's on fire. There's a lot going on, but there's a lot of focus. And that's next weekend on Saturday. Then on Monday, I put it in because it's a full moon and it's always good to see them. But this is a very big full moon because it's angular in the capital in Washington, and it is a 22 Scorpio and a 22 Taurus. And notice Uranus up there right at the top next to the sun. Rising sign is Leo. So we have what we call a grand cross with the angles, the sun in Leo, the descendant in Aquarius, the Uranus at 26 Taurus as this moon happens. Now, the full moon in Taurus was called the Buddha's enlightenment. He sat under a tree and was enlightened. And so this is an enlightening moon. It wants us to really understand things and figure things out. And so this is a very powerful moon. It also does include Venusian energy because Venus, of course, rules the Taurus planets, and it rules Mars energy because Mars rules the Scorpio planets. So there's a lot of juicy, fiery energy. You can see that huge mystic rectangle in the middle of it. Expect that full moon next Monday to be juicy, and it is in the afternoon, but you'll be feeling it build. You'll be feeling the buildup over the weekend. Let me do the weeks, the moons for this week. Today, Sunday, rather. Oh, we're in April. We're now in May. The lusty month of May. All right, so the moon was in Leo on Sunday, going void at 9:03 a.m. Was void most of Monday, which is why this is put up a little bit late. Going into Virgo, went void with a square to Uranus, kind of sudden, unexpected changes on Cinco de Mayo. The moon went into Virgo at 3:40 p.m. East Coast time. It's in Virgo on Tuesday. It's in Virgo on Wednesday because the moon is moving slowly this week. And it goes void at 12:11 on Thursday. And it goes void with an opposition to Saturn. So the moon in Virgo opposite Saturn is a good energy for structuring and building things. And of course, moon in Virgo right now is answering to the Mercury that's very fiery, right? So it's a fiery, want to get things accomplished kind of moon. So it's got a good potency for getting stuff done. It goes void at 12:11 a.m. On Thursday night, in the middle of the night, and it goes into Libra at 3:08 a.m. on Thursday morning, like bright and early. So it'll be in Libra all day Thursday, all day Friday. and it goes void at 2:17 a.m. on the Saturday the 10th, and it goes void with a trine to Jupiter. So that's a nice working moon. And then Mercury goes into Taurus at 8:15 a.m. And then later in the day, moon's void most of Saturday. The moon goes into Scorpio at 3:58 p.m. Saturday afternoon. It will be in Scorpio on Sunday, Mother's Day. It will be in Scorpio for the full moon on the 12th, and it will go void at 2:37 a.m. on the 13th, Tuesday the 13th, with a trine to Saturn. So when we're looking at the moon, we look at the moon for the emotional content of the day. So Tuesday has a lot of stressful aspects, Tuesday the 6th, and it's got a lot of health aspects. So any kind of health things, you want to go to the doctor. It also had pretty stressful aspects today, Monday, but it was void most of the day. So there were stressful and health aspects today that encourage you to take action and figure out where you're going. And then on Tuesday has good energy for getting things accomplished, but also more stressful aspects. When we get to Wednesday, Wednesday has a little bit of a flow with it because the sun and moon are in a trine, so they're working together, and the moon trines Uranus, so it's got a bit of creativity. So Wednesday is kind of a creative day for getting things done. And then Thursday is contract day, partnership day, relationship day. Again, a bit of stress because the moon is going to be opposite Saturn and Neptune as it goes void. Or after it goes void opposite Saturn, and then it goes out void opposite Neptune, and it goes void opposite Venus. But when we get towards the end of the day, it's positive. So it's good day for negotiating deals, partnerships, relationships. Friday is quiet, very quiet, nice quiet day. Saturday, again, some stressful energy, not too bad. The moon is going to go void at 2:17 in the morning, and it will enter Scorpio at 3:58 p.m. in the afternoon. So it's a void moon day on the 10th. Again, gives a little bit of time to get things caught up. Not necessarily working on new projects, but finishing up old, going out and weeding your garden or planting it or doing some Mother's Day shopping, things like that. And then Sunday the 11th does have a bit of stress because the moon in Scorpio is square to the Mars in Leo. So there can be a little bit of squabble on Monday or on Sunday on Mother's Day. Hopefully not too bad. But the moon's pretty crabby these days because the planets are kind of crabby, and because both the moon in Virgo and the moon in Libra are answering to fiery bosses, so the moon in Virgo normally just a little neurotic and getting things done. Now it's like, well, crabby, and that's the way it is when the boss, when it's in Aries likes to fight. So, it's a little bit of a fighty energy. So, hang in there, pick your battles wisely, and hopefully you'll get through the week without a whole lot of problem. I'm going to be teaching for ESAR on a web workshop on May 17th. You can register on their site. It's going to be from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Pacific time, so adjust for your time zone. And then I'm also running an astrology cruise from June 22nd to June 29th. This is my first and only. I've decided I'm better at just showing up and talking. But this should be a lot of fun. We have a really fun group going. But as is the nature of starting something 3 years ago, because I started it at NORWAC 3 years ago, when I was turning 70 and going to have 30 years in astrology. And then I had the cancer diagnosis, so we paused it. And then we started it up again. And then I had the broken leg for 3 months in rehab. And so we started it up again. But it's kind of been this, start and stoppy thing. So it's moving forward. But of course, people that signed up originally 2 years ago, their circumstances have changed. So I have some cancellations. So I'm reselling those seats so I can give the people back their money. So I would really appreciate it if you've ever wanted to go to Alaska. Sign up, have fun. We are going to have a really good time. We're going to have 10 hours of astrology classes with me and other astrologers. We're going to have a lovely new moon ceremony, which welcomes Jupiter. He's going to be in his exaltation. We're going to have stargazing with Jeff Gronlund. We're going to have group dinners. We have cocktail hours. We get a couple cocktail hours as part of our cruise package. We get free Wi-Fi. And if you don't want to eat with us, you get 2 meals in fancy places. So bring your family. and sneak off with them. So you don't even have to come to the astrology. I've got a couple people coming there like, I don't want to go to the astrology. I'm like, you don't have to go to the astrology. Just come on the cruise. And the hours are when we're at sea, right? And then there are optional tours with the cruise line when we land in the different locations, and the places we're going are Juneau, Skagway. We're going to cruise Glacier Bay, and then Ketchikan, Ward Cove, and then Victoria. Now, if you want to get off the boat in Canada, you got to bring your passport. Although rumor has it birth certificates work too, but check with Angelina. She's coordinating it for me. Her contact information is here, rovingsouls.com. Anne's Cruise, it's also on my website. And this is the chart for the cruise. You can see it's a Scorpio rising with a finger of God on the top, with Mars, with Pluto and Saturn kind of directing us off into our fate and where we're headed. Nice Sun Jupiter in Cancer, and Uranus, Saturn, and Venus all in Taurus in the 7th house. So it should be great fun. Juno and Venus together. So gather your friends, gather your family. We have roommate shares available if you want to do a roommate, single and double occupancy. So sign up. And this is our new moon that happens when we're in Skagway, about in the middle of the night. So we're not going to do the moon ceremony in the middle of the night. We'll do it, and we'll have a group ceremony, which will be very nice, because when we gather together, we really can create some wonderful magic. And also, Cupful of Stars, I do that. You get a theme song, you get daily aspects, you get an audio from me about what the aspects are in the day, and you can sign up at Patreon. It's $17 a month. And that's it. Have a great, wonderful week of fun. And we're going to stop the recording.